Welcome, everybody. Today's presentation is Cinema 4D in a broadcast environment, making your life easier with the versatility of Cinema 4D. As Matthias says, my name is Dan Pierce. I'm one of the motion graphics design directors at the broadcast design group at the Fox Broadcasting Company. Here we got some work here. I've been doing a lot of titles recently, so if I did a reel, it would just be 90 seconds of title slams, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that. But if you do want to check out more of my work, it's theautomator.tv, and I do a lot of breakdowns and how I got to certain places and everything. So if you want to check out some more of that stuff, feel free to go to theautomator.tv. Okay. So as I said, I'm in the broadcast design group, and what we do is design identity for on-air promo. And as you can see with some of these still frames, we have to deal with a lot of different styles because we have a lot of different types of shows. So we have to be ready and to be able to conform to whatever is needed that day. So we do this for on-air promo, and we also do non-traditional format marketing. So we've sort of branched out now to do a lot more of the outdoor stuff. So you can see this Mt4 Legacy up on the top here. It's at the Godzilla screen in Times Square, and that's one of the largest continuous screens in North America. And then down the bottom here, something I did for Orville. That's actually a third of the actual output. This was 22,000 pixels wide, and that was near the World Trade Center, one of the connecting hallways. So we're sort of branched out from just traditional on-air broadcast promo, and we're doing a lot more outdoor stuff that borrows from the design that we come up with for the broadcast. And then, just like to mention, if you're watching this or here, if you're watching SC4D live, you're probably into motion graphics. So this is what we all do. We're lucky that we get to create and collaborate with people. We're lucky to love what we do and to be part of an amazing supportive community that has events like this where we can share knowledge. One of the other things that I have found being a motion graphics artist is we also have to be problem solvers. People are going to come to us and ask for designs. They don't know how to articulate it, but they can give us at least a tone and a feel, and it's up to us to figure out what that design is, what's going to be effective, and then how to actually make it and finish it. So to remain creative and be a problem solver at the same thing, just to echo what EJ was saying earlier, versatility. You need versatility in how you approach a project, how you create workflows to enable easy art direction, and the inevitable changes that are going to come. There's no way you're just going to do one pass of something. It's always going to change, and that's fine. That's just part of it. And versatility in your tool set, and that's why we love Cinema 4D so much. So here we have a project. This was called Fox Presents. Here, I'll just play this right now so we can see. So we have an opening for a station ID, essentially, and then these are Fox-produced shows. So Fox is presenting this, and in this particular instance, we have Empire. So there's a couple different parts of this that we had to change out. So as you can see, my esteemed colleague, David Miramontes, was excellent at executing, essentially skinning this base form that we had into different things. So we sort of broke this off. The titles are separate. The images are separate because those changed out a lot. We fed those from the print department, and those changed as well. So we had to think about how we were going to build this. So the front end where you saw the Fox, you could change the colors in that independently of having to change anything like this. So if you only need to change one thing, you don't have to go back and change everything. So that was really important to think about that. So to expand on that kind of sequence, I built a custom one for today's presentation that hits on the same sort of crucial points. Let's just imagine that we have to do something for a fictional network called Flux that has shows and movies and stuff. And one of their things that they need to create a modular template. And we're going to use the versatility of Cinema 4D to get to those results quickly and to get good feedback. and how to break down the project to ease the production repetition when you have to do things over and over and over again, and tricks to make versioning easier. So the creative part of that was to make the tune-in message, so in the front end, we know what time that show is going to be on, what network, etc. And then, just for the purposes of this presentation, we're going to do 4 different styles: an action, a comedy, a sci-fi, and a thriller. So we can see how well Cinema 4D has the tool set that we can just jump into anything and conform to any one of these genres. And we're going to build procedurally when you can, because remember, there will be changes. There will be changes. Okay, so let's just jump into this base project here. On the left, I just have a wireframe render, and a lot of times you'll get assets from either a vendor or another person in your department that you didn't build. So you're going to have to jump into this and figure out how to break it apart and put it in a proper sequence that you can render things individually and nothing has to all be meshed together. On the right, here are just some final frames. I didn't take the texturing too far or anything. I just wanted to show how to build some of these things. So let's just jump into it. Okay. So we'll go to the base project now. I think I already have this up here. All right, so as I said, you might get this from a vendor, from someone else, something that you don't know anything about. So we know in the very beginning, we have what will probably be the tune-in. That will say like tomorrow or tonight. And so we know that's going to have to be changed. We're probably going to have a nice reflection on the floor, so we got to figure out how to extract a reflection and put that in later. And then we go through this little corridor, and then we're in the, let's just call it the resolve. So if we look at this from a different angle, makes a little bit more sense how we can break these apart. So we got the intro, we got the corridor, and then we got the resolve. So we're going to go through this and break that apart. All right, so let's just start off, jump straight in, and we're going to do, let's do the action scene first. Okay, so let's just take a little look at the video. All right, cool. Meteor apocalypse. All right, so we got the tune in here. We know we're going to have to change that. And then we have some effects going on in here. Specifically, we have a lot of dynamics happening and fracturing. So in this example, I'm going to go through how to do this building and how to do an art-directed sort of road collapse. So let's just jump into this. Cool. Okay, so here's the base project. Let me just play it so we can go in. We have a lot of things going on here. So I'm a huge fan of layers, especially if you work in a group of people and projects get passed around. Please organize and name everything. It makes it easier for everybody. Be nice to your fellow artists. So let me just turn off some of these things so we can see it a little bit better. All right, so we got this building collapsing, and then we got this road collapsing. I actually have meteors that are turned off. You might be able to see a few that come through, but I have the visibility turned off. Oh, there goes one. Hitting it. So knowing that I might want to change what those meteors actually look like, so in the final render, I just turn off the visibility of it, but it still has the effect of it. So let's start with the building here. So we got the, sorry about that, the empty one. All right, so here's the scene, sort of broken down, nice and simple. Let me just put a new camera so we don't go anywhere. Great. Okay, so we're just going to take this building here, and then I actually have a pre-made one, I believe, building. Here we go. All right, so this is the same sort of thing. And actually just going to jump in real quick. Like, I am no modeler by any means, but Cinema 4D makes it really easy just to do sort of minor things. I've noticed, especially with texturing and lighting, if you add just some sort of deformation to the surface of something, it makes it look a lot better. So here, I'm just going to make current state to object. Whoops, I'm going to copy this. I always like to leave a little trail just in case. I'm going to get rid of this. Now, I'm going to add some, if you look on here. All right, I got my lines. I only have one segment on each one of these, so I'm just going to start adding some geometry. Let's do 10 there. All right, now we're adding some floors to the building. So you can sort of see how this is coming together. Let's do an even on the Z. All right, so it sort of looks like we have some windows already. So let me just press C to make this editable, and now I can do the polygon selection. First thing I'm going to do, actually, is take this top, and I'm going to melt it. So that it's essentially, I'm telling this just to be one piece. Okay. So quick key for that, U, and then a Z. So now that's all one piece. Pretty sweet. Okay. That was nice and easy. Let's just do it for the bottom as well. Make this nice and quick. So I'm just clicking and dragging. As long as my mouse doesn't go up, I don't have to hold shift or anything like that. Okay. So U, Z, done. All right, so let's select all. Now I'm going to deselect the top. Deselect the bottom and deselect the top. So now we have all these side faces ready to go. And then, so what we're going to want to do is sort of extract each one of these polygons in a little bit so it looks like we have some difference in between the windows. So again, I'm going to hit U, and then I'm going to hit W, which is inner extrude. Oh, I'm sorry, M, not U. I was saying M for make. I want to make something, M, W. So now, if I start dragging in here, uh-oh, it's all coming together. We don't want that. So if you just uncheck this, so now individual polygons are going to start going by themselves. Okay, so now we have all this detail in here in just a minute or so. And if you want to do MT for extrude, we can just push those in a little bit too. So let's go in nice and close. Start dragging. And then we're in a little bit. So now we have all these windows. And if I hit V, it's going to bring up a little quick menu here. Select set selection. So I'm actually telling Cinema 4D to remember these polygon selections, because if I want to texture later, put a mirror texture on it, I don't have to go back and individually select all these, which would be a nightmare. So that is good to have. And then just for a little bit of added detail, do the top, MW to inner extrude again, MT, let's go again, MW, MT. So now we got this building. So it's pretty effective of how fast you can go through something and create some detail. Okay, so let's just go back to the original one, just so we don't have so many lines to distract us. And then we are going to use the Voronoi, which is very hard to say, fracture right here. If I hold down Option or Alt, it's just going to put it right in there. And then as we can see, we already have fractures going, which is pretty amazing. So one of the things we want to immediately do is put a simulation tag on it and then a rigid body, which is going to tell it to have weight and gravity. Since it's bigger objects, we don't want it to sort of move as quickly and be slip and slide. So I'm going to bring down the bounce on it and then bring up the friction. So let's just press play and see what happens here. All right, it's all going to fall down as a group. So it's working, which is great, but we don't want that to fall. So we're just going to do a couple of things here. We're going to add a floor so it has something to react to. And then always to go along with the rigid body tag is the collider tag, which has the same properties, it just doesn't move. So you're just going to use this to bounce off of. So let's just press play again. And it just slowly collapses, which is exactly what we want. That's great. All right, but one of the things we don't want is it to immediately start coming apart. We want to shoot some meteors at this and make it collapse in an art-directed way. So I'm just going to add some more pieces to this. If you look under here, this point generator, if you click on this, this is where all the details of what's going on in here. Let's just bring up the point amount. Let's go to 60. All right. that looks good. All right, you can see that you have a lot more here. So one of the things that we want to do is first, I'm going to tell this inherit tag to affect all of the pieces that are in here. And then, since we don't want it to immediately start coming apart, we want to look at this trigger. So right now it's immediately, and we have other choices here at velocity peak on collision. That sounds good for a meteor hitting it. So let's just do on collision. And then press play, nothing happens. Great, because it's waiting for something to affect it. So just for these purposes, let me just make a sphere really quickly. Push it out. Maybe make it a little smaller. Okay, and now we got to tell this to be dynamic as well. So let's just pop this on and press play. Okay, that's not a very good meteor. It's not really going anywhere. All right, so let's give this some action. So the custom initial velocity. So this is going to tell it immediately start doing something. So this will be on the X, and I know this way is negative. So let's just do 2,000. All right, let's see what happens. Nice. There we go. All right, we got some action. This is a little strange that it's hitting this, and the top of the building is still there. So we got to figure out how to isolate that impact a little bit. So let me bring this back. So inside the fracture object, this trigger velocity, so we're at 10 right now. So when that gets hit, a lot of it's going to be affected. So let's just bring it up to 25, see what that does. Okay, a little better. Still staying together. And just a little side note on this as well, if we go back to fracture object, we can actually do connectors as well and isolate certain parts of how much force needs to break it apart. And you can also use the MoGraph paintbrush to isolate which parts you want. But for these purposes, let's just stick with this. Okay, so we got this building going. That's looking pretty good. So, but the problem is with our sphere right here, we only have one meteor. How are we going to do more meteors? I mean, we could do a giant cloner that shoots it all out at once, but again, that's just going to be one thing. So what's great is that we have dynamics, but we also have the simulations that we can use together. So I just added an emitter here. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. Let's make it 400 by 200. And always remember this blue arrow is the direction that is pointing. So that's the way it's going to shoot. So I'm just going to press play now. Let me just turn off this guy so he's not causing problems. All right, so as we can see, we got some stuff shooting out of here. It's going a little slow, so let's amp up the speed. Let's add there we go. That's looking a little bit better. Let's go even higher. All right, so we got these guys shooting out now. And then, but what we don't want, I think that's a little bit too many. Everything's just going to start falling apart if we do that. So this feels about right. And then we're going to want to shoot it hailing down from the heavens. So I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to angle it a little bit. And then we're just going to drop this sphere inside here. We're going to want to turn this off because the two things are going to fight, and it's going to get confused. So we're just going to click it right back to natural. Turn this back on. Go back to 0. And show objects. All right, so now this is going to start shooting out here. Let's see if we're going to get a hit. All right, we got a hit. Nice. Okay, so now we can see that it's too high, so let's just bring this up. All right, let's just go for it. I'm going to bring this back. Let's make this a little harder to knock down. And then I'm going to add some more to this. So what's great is that we can just keep on going with this. Change all these parameters. Everything's still live. It's amazing that this geometry is still a parametric object. We can go back in. We can change that. We can switch this out with other things. I could even take, oh, do we still have the other building? I can even just take this in right now. And we got that building now. So it's great that we can just exchange these things out and not have to worry about it. So that's how we can make a little meteor shower really quickly. And then one of the other things that I wanted to outline was how this road collapses. And again, with the Voronoi Fracture, we're going to use that. But this time, we're going to use a different type of generation for it. So let me just open up a base project for that. All right, so this was that middle section. It's all in place and everything. Again, we're just going to hold Option or Alt, click on this, and then makes it a child of that. But one of the things I realized is that we want to sort of crust to this if this is a road. So I actually just made a cube, same size as the floor, but it has some depth to it. And then we're going to put this in the exact same place. So I'm just going to rotate this down 90, if I can get there. Here, let me just do it this way. Great. And then I'm going to turn this off. OK, so let's go in. Let's look at the fracture. We should add a rigid body again, so it has some dynamics. Again, since these are supposed to be giant pieces, I'm going to bring down some of these values. So I'm going to act as much. Let's just press play, see what happens. All right, so it's all going as one thing. And then let's go into the fracture and sources. OK, so like before, we have a point generator. It's just random points assigned, and it's going to break it down. The other thing that it has here is a shader source. So I love the shaders in Cinema 4D, especially noises. They have such great noises. But in this particular one, and this is going to work on a sort of luma value. So if I just click on this, I'm going to navigate to... All right, if you can just check this out. I made this in Photoshop, super easy. I just brushed a line across it. So if you can imagine that the white values, which we're going to say is 1, is what's going to be break it down the most. And as it fades off to black, that'll be the less affected. So I'm going to bring this in. You know what I might do? Before I rotate this, I might apply it. All right, shader source. Let's click on this. Let's navigate again. Sure. Oh, there we go. All right, let's just imagine that's on the ground. OK, so let's go back over to here, sample precision. Go up. You can see the sort of road getting a little bit closer. And then let's add some more pieces to this, too. All right, so now you can really see what's going on here. So using this image here, we can sort of art direct of where we want these smaller pieces to be. So now the next key would be, let's put the dynamics. This might be a little strange since it's facing upwards, but we're going to work with it. 5, and then 30, or 80. OK, so those are going to be big pieces, too. And then going back to the dynamics of the trigger, beforehand, we used on collision. This time, we're going to use on velocity peak. So what we're going to do, since this is a MoGraph object, with the effectors, we have choices of all of this will affect this, this fracture here. So we're going to want, let's just do a random effector to move it up. So as we can see, it's immediately affected this. We don't really want that because we want to sort of trigger things as it goes on. So let's go to the fall off. We're just going to go to the box. And then, of course, we cannot see that because it's right here and that's back there. So what we're going to do, we're going to use Align to Spline to put this in the right place. So I'm just going to get the pen tool. And then I really like B-splines because it's going to make a nice, smooth, it's going to do the sort of interpolation work for me. So I just did that out, press Escape. And then now if I just go back into my points, I can move things around. Let's see, where's that other point? There it is. So I can sort of isolate where I want it to be over that road. And now, I can change this. Let's go back and look at here. So Spline, select this, and then under tags, oh, I'm sorry, the random effector under tags, we're going to go to Align to Spline. So we're going to tell it to be in the position of this spline. Oh. Another cool thing. See, when I drew it, it drew a lot further ahead, so we don't want that. One of the tools that I use all the time, this one in here, transfer. So that's going to tell this to go to where this is, so you don't have to like really figure it out. So now it's exactly there. All right, so as we can see in our front view, we have our random effector. Let's just make it a little bit bigger. That's the fall off in there. So as I move this under here, see this, here's the position, it's going to start cracking things up. Now, we could just animate this over time, which I think we'll do. All right, so let's just go to the very beginning. You can right click on this and add a keyframe, or let's just go to the end and do 100. Or you can do Option Alt and just click on this little guy here. So that's how you set keyframes. And now, as this should go through, this should start falling off. So if you would with me, imagine this was on the ground and facing downwards, that this is how we can split things up. And since everything's still live and procedural, say we want to change the source image on this and change the position. The spline, we can still change too. So let's say we wanted to go over this way and take those pieces and go off course. So it's really amazing that we can still have all this dynamic action, but still be able to go in and change things. So that's how to do that. All right, so let's hop back over and let's take a look at another one here. So we looked at the action theme. So next one, the comedy scene. All right, so let's take a look at this. All right, donuts. Everybody loves donuts. So in this, we got a lot of things going on, some simulations, and this time soft body dynamics, which are always fun and silly to work with. You can sort of see it over here as it falls, has a nice spring to it. We have it coming over here. And then another really interesting thing is this conveyor belt that we have going. And in this entire scene, there is no keyframes at all. So everything is just moving by itself. Which is really impressive that we can do. And since there's no keyframes, if you want to go in and change things, you can. Everything's live and you can do that. All right, so let's jump into this. All right, fingers crossed. It's a pretty chunky scene, so let's see how it loads. We'll probably get a little spinning wheel. There it is. Don't worry about that. Everything's coming through. As you can see over here, it was really important, specifically in this scene, to label everything and use the layers palette, because to isolate and to focus on certain things, we would just turn things on and off. And as well, I did a little espresso here for turning the dynamics on and off, which once it loads, I'll show you how all that works. Okay, so obviously we got a lot of things going on in here. Maybe a little bit of overkill, but that's fine. So just again, to highlight the layers palette, it was really important to name all these things for your fellow artists. If it's going around, you can solo these, you can turn them on and off, you can have things exist within the scene but not render. You can turn all the deformers off, espresso, all that kind of thing. And then, again, like the modeling, I wouldn't consider myself a power modeler, and I would not consider myself as like any kind of expert on espresso. But it is very, very powerful. And when I was making this scene, I was getting frustrated that all the dynamics were going at once, even if I didn't want to see it. If you turn off the visibility in the background, it's still figuring it out. So it's slowing everything down. So I thought there's got to be some sort of way to not have to go through all of these hierarchies and find this and this and this and turn them off individually. So I noticed that each one had this enabled. And I was like, wait a second, I wonder, that's just a switch. I wonder if there's some sort of espresso that I could do. And then, of course, yes, there is. Thank you, Cinema 4D. Switch operator. So what I just did is, if you drag this in here, I'll just illustrate this real quick, that you could just drag this switch, pipe it into this particular one, and have this switch globally control all these other ones. So, and then what was even more amazing is, as I continued to build these scenes out, you can drag these to copy them, and then just drag this in, and that replaces that one. That blew my mind. So all I had to do is just pipe one first. I didn't have to go into all these menus, find all this, and go down and pipe it through. All I had to do is just copy it, and then just go straight through again, and boom, that's controlled. I think it's already controlled by something else, so that's what's going on there. All right, so in this scene, obviously there's a lot going on, so let's just concentrate on this conveyor belt here, because I found it fascinating that I could have something moving. I didn't have to keyframe anything. It's all controlled by this spline, the shape of it and the position. So I'm just going to go in right now and show you how to build just a little conveyor belt really quickly. All right, so let's just go into parts here. I've broken it down. So this roller. All right, so essentially it's just this cylinder that I put on the side. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make it dynamic. So again, rigid body. And then I'm going to take the bounce. You can tell I don't like the bounce, and I like a lot of friction. I want this to grab onto something, so I'm going to go full on the friction to it. So if I press play, it starts moving immediately. And actually, I have this. See, I got caught by something turned off visibility, but it's still enabled, so it was actually bouncing that off. So I'm going to turn that off. So now you see it just drops. So one of the things that we need to do is to establish some sort of like axis order to it. So under simulate, we have a connector. And if we just put this in, actually the first thing we're going to do, Option or Alt-G, I'm going to group this. And then for my fellow artists, I'm going to name it. So let's just call this complete. So I'm going to drop this in here. And then the thing with the connector, even if it's way over here, as long as the axis is the same, then it's totally fine. So we're going to tell this. I think we're going to tell it the group to be the A, and then the roller to be the B. So now if I press play, nothing happens because the hinge is saying, hey, wait a second, you got to stay here. I got to tell you what to do. All right, so that's a good start. And then also under simulate, if we go to dynamics and then go to motor, put this guy in this group, then we got to tell it, hey, let's make this move. All right, I think something's happening. Let me just change the display to, oh, there we go. It's moving, but it's moving super fast. So that's obviously not something that we want. So down here we have the angular target speed. So maybe, I'm not sure what unit that is. Maybe that's 1,000 degrees a second or something. So let's just bring it way down so we can start to see what's going on. And there's also torque, which will come into importance later when we do the conveyor belt and we start putting things on top of it. So let's just get a sort of healthy speed here. All right, so let's just bring it back. You know, if I put it on, there we go. We can sort of see it's a little kaleidoscopy. That's cool. All right, so, and then also, still being procedural, we can just start building onto this if we want to do some more stuff and add to it. So let's say we want some caps on this. Let me make this big so we can see. Let's make it a little wider. Let's just put some caps on. Boom. And since that's children of this main one, everything's going to react. So you could put anything on that. You could put paddles on it. You could do anything more to it. And when it gets to texture time, since this is already all modeled out, we can, you know, put some caps on it, change it. It's great that we can have this go back and change it as much as we want. Okay, so now this is just as simple as, let's just draw a spline here. Again, I love B-splines, so let's just do one real quick. Change it from Bezier to B-splines. Let's just map out something really quick here. And again, escape to get out of it. I might change these points just a little bit. Just click and drag, click and drag. Cool, so now we have a spline. If we go back into here, now I use cloners so much because they're so useful for mapping out and iterating things, so I don't have to place things so many times. So let's just go up into MoGraph and then cloner, and then drop this guy in here. So we're going to change it. We're going to tell it, as you can see, is linear. It would just build on top of this. And if you wanted a straight one, you could just go like that, and let's see, it would be in the X. And then you would just up this, and then you would have a conveyor belt. But we want one to follow an actual path. So let's go on here, linear, and then object. And then we're just going to go in here. So The way that the normals are on this spline, it's a little different to how I set out, how I modeled this, but that's fine. Again, procedural, I can just go in here and change it. Now the way it's sort of staggered through here, it's not very even, but that's easy enough to change. You could change it in the spline. Right now it's adaptive. If you want to uniform or subdivided, it's going to break it out. Or in your cloner, this distribution, and this will come in handy for a lot of different things. Right now it's on count, so it was putting 10 in there no matter what the shape was or the grouping. So what we want is even, and that will evenly space it out between all these. So let's just, now that we have the basic shape, it's just a matter of upping the clone count. All right, that seems like enough, right? And then let's just go to shading. And then, actually, let's turn this back on so we can see. Uh-oh, that was okay. We were down in the timeline. Okay, so it's actually working. So all of these are just repeating from this first one, but they each actually have their own power. So let's just drop something on here so we can see if this is working or not. Okay, so let's go to the top view. Let's just do a cube for now. Okay, that's probably a little big. Let's bring this guy down. Just drag the scale. Okay, let's put this up. Okay, so we got it right on top here. Here, let's make it a little bit more. All right, so I'm going to add some geometry to this because I'm going to make this a soft body. And if I put this back on, you can see that this has more chunks to it. Actually, I'll leave this on for now. And then I'll go to simulation tag, soft body. If I put this on and drop it, pretty good. It sort of bounced. We need some more power on this. So let's go back. And it's great that we can just go back and forth until we figure out what's good. So I know this torque will probably work out. So let's see. Oh, there we go. And let's go up with the speed, too, and figure out until we like this. All right, there it goes. Pretty cool. So if we just put like bouncers on the side, we could have that go all the way around. And it's amazing that we have 0 keyframes on this. And we can keep on going back and changing things. So let's just go do something. This is just going to shoot off. All right. And then actually one other point I wanted to bring up on this is that if we needed to make this spline go up or down, that the cloner has something really important. Let me see if I can find a point here. Let's do this point. All right, so if I go down, and if I go to the beginning, you'll see that this is curved in a weird way now, and that's definitely not something that we want. We want this to be completely flat all the way around, and that's easy to change as well. So if I just take this spline, change it, I'm going to call it a rail. So within the cloner, we can tell it this way is always up. So I'm going to take this, and you'll see it go up. And then if we go back into the cloner, over here, has this little field here, and it's called rail. So I'm going to drop this in here, and everything is flat now. So that's something really important to keep in mind with other things when you're using the cloner on a spline. So that's always a really handy thing to do, and it's super simple. You just duplicate what you have. Or if you want to change it in different ways, you can move that top spline. Okay, so that's the conveyor belt. So let's put some donuts on it. All right, so we got our little sphere here. And let's take a look at it. So it's just a simple torus. We don't have much geometry to this. I like glazed donuts, so I'm just trying to figure out how to put some icing on the top. We can do it with textures, as you can see down here. That's just a ramp that stops in the middle. But let's see, as I mentioned before with the building, if you add some extra detail to the actual geometry, it's going to catch the light differently, and it'll add some little extra. So one of the other really easy features of Cinema 4D is, again, let me duplicate this to create a little trail, is the sculpting tool. So inside here, first I got to make this, press C to make it editable, and now I can use it in the sculpt tool. So one of the cool things about this is also layered and procedural. So I'm going to tell it to subdivide once, so you can see that there's more geometry now. All right, let me go for another one. Okay, so now there's a lot of geometry. And the great thing about the Sculpt tool is it has these layers. So let me just put one layer on. Let me just knife this so you can see that this is going in. Let me make another layer. Let me do flatten. Okay, so that's flattening it. And then what's great is so you can layer these things up, and then they also have the strength, so you can tell it to mix and match. So again, procedural, you can change things around until you get the feel that you want. But in this particular instance, I'm going to get rid of these guys. I want it to sort of pull out from just around the top of it. So we got to figure out how to isolate just that. So we got a mask function here, and that's just as simple as painting on here. You know what? It may be easier if I go into the top view here. And so we're just going to go in, make sure to do a layer. I almost forgot there. So as you can see, there's size and pressure of how much it does. And then there's also the quick keys of the brackets to make this bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to, if I go to shading, you can see that this mask is being shaded on now. And it's as simple as just drawing it, which is so great. So I'm just going to go around real quickly. I won't bore you too much with this. Let's just finish the sides a little bit. Cool. All right. That'll do. Okay, so now we have all this isolated. And with sculpting, the mask is telling it actually not to affect it. So we want to invert this mask. And then now we have the top ready. And I'm just going to use the pull, which if you can sort of see over here, it just sort of pulls it out. I'm going to make the size nice and big. And then I'm just going to start painting. And then you can see around the sides, it's creating this little lip here, which is super cool. And granted, this may be too much, but don't worry, because we have that strength slider. So I'm just going to go around real quick. Let's do the inside as well. All right, so we got a frosted donut. That may be a little bit too much, so I'm just going to go into the strength, bring it back down a little bit. Okay, so we've modeled a nice donut here. So let's go back into the standard layout. Got all our objects and stuff. So what's great is that we have this sculpt tag here, so we can go back in, change it, add to it, whatever we want. But I just sort of want to, I feel good about this one. I want to move forward with it. So I'm going to current state to object. And again, leave a little trail for yourself. We're going to have this editable now. But if something happens you don't want it, you always have, you can go back and change this. So now what I want to do is make this a soft body. All right, so let's create a floor on this. And again, a collider tag because that floor is not going to move, but we want it to react. Oh, look, I'm changing this again. Amazing. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to put a soft body tag on this. All right, but I'm worried because there's a lot of geometry on that, so I'm going to press play. Not quite sure what's going to happen, but here we go. All right, so it's chugging. With soft body, it works better if you don't have that much geometry. So here, I'm just going to press escape until it stops. Don't worry. It will. Okay, there we go. All right, so what can we do to make this still have this much geometry, but also react with a soft body? So in one of the deformers that we have a whole bunch of deformers, which are all very useful in their own ways. With this particular one, as you can see by the icon, this Mesh Deformer. So I'm going to select this. So what this is going to do is I have this lower poly mesh that's essentially the same size as that donut. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And then maybe for better effect, let's just do a little bit more. And then I'm going to make this guy editable. You could leave it if you wanted, but I'm going to pull in some of these points so it's closer. If we look at the side, you can see that it's a little tall on this. So I'm just going to grab the rectangle selection. I'm going to bring this down. Cool. Bring these bottom ones up. So now if we go back to perspective view, this sort of encases that other one. It's not really going to matter in the middle, so I'm not going to fret over that too much. All right. So now we got the Torus mesh, and then we got that actual one encased inside of it. So if we take this Mesh Deformer, drop it in the donut, I'm going to take this off, put it over on the Torus mesh, and we click this. I'm just going to drag this guy right in here, do Initialize, and now you can see that that's gone to a wireframe totally encased with this. So fingers crossed, now we got something working out. And you could see before, it barely made it through one frame, and now it's reacting really well. So it's floating a little bit on the bottom, but we can, with further passes, we can fix that up with the shape of that. So let's see if we can get that going inside the conveyor belt. So let me grab this. Press V. Another quick thing is that we can just go straight back and forth between this. Turn off this cube. And remember, even if it's turned off, if this is still on, it's going to start figuring that out. So let's disable that. Put this on. Oh, this guy's tiny. Don't want that. All right, but that's OK, because now, again, procedurally, we still have this base spline that all of this is based off of. We're going to put this in a cloner. Again, tell it, object, point it to that spline. And then we got our donuts on there. So again, change it to even. And we can tell it to be a little taller. Great. And we can tell it to be a little bigger as well. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Cool. Looks like this one needs a rail as well. So we already have that available. So you can see how all elements in the scene can, oh, did it upside down, funny. Here, I'm going to clear that. So all elements share the same thing. So let's just press play. Let's see if this works out. It'll be a little slower. Soft bodies is a little slow. Oh, it looks like we're going in the wrong direction. All right, let's go. But see, everything's live. We can still go back into it. I should probably stop this. All right. So let's go back into this. Just minus on here. And then drop this in. And then we got the donuts going. So this is really amazing. And again, our splines are live. We can change all this. We can actually make a U shape, use the same spline to create a little canal for it so it can bounce off the sides. So using all these techniques just to keep everything alive as things change is really useful. So those are two things, two of the genres that I wanted to go through. Let me just go back over here. So this is actually a two-part presentation. I hate to have to stop now, but on Wednesday, I believe at 2 o'clock, I am going to go to part 2 of the presentation where we're going to do the sci-fi, which is going to involve quick modeling, making these robotic arms with IK chains in under 5 minutes. It's really quick to do, and some spline dynamics, as you can see, what's holding up this logo here. And then also, let's just call it the thriller scene. We got this nice forest scene using deformers to put things in place, and then the MoGraph as well to populate the scenes quickly. And then, most importantly, one of the basis of all these things is how to version out all this. If you remember at the beginning of each one of these, we have a tune-in, and these change. Sometimes our work orders that we get are 30 versions, 60 versions. Sometimes we have to do it in different languages. So I'm going to share some ways of breaking this apart so we can do as many as possible and it won't drag things down. So we're going to learn how to isolate just that type and the reflection out of that scene. We're not going to worry about anything else. We can use a spherical camera to take an HDRI of the scene that you have built. So when we render everything separately, we don't have to have this other geometry that's there, and that will make it render even faster. So I just want to say thank you for listening. I hope that was useful. And I just want to say thank you to Cinema and the community as well, because all of those things help me figure out how to do all these things too. So good luck with everything. Thank you.